To your point, the reason it's people is if you have continuity, you win. I talk in like sign language and like ESP with like Marcus and Hannah and you and Kaylin and like we go fast. Speed matters. When you trust your fellow employee, you're actually working on the work instead of the politics. So many of you have friends right now that you guys over a beer when you hang out, like they're just talking. All the energy's on the toxic fucking politics. I know why we're going to win, and it's because of how I think about this. Fourthly, I just want to start with yesterday was the first day of work I missed because of sickness in 13 years. So I'm glad that didn't happen today because that would have been a bummer. I want to start with how excited I am to be with all of you. This is obviously the largest residency class we've had. This is a program that really works for the organization and for the people that go through it. Even people that don't end up at Vayner have been able to leverage it quite a bit, which obviously makes me incredibly proud. I've been hearing incredible things about this residence class from so many different places and angles and different people. And so kudos to you collectively. And honestly, I want this time together to be the most valuable it possibly can. And so I definitely am looking to do as much Q&A as possible to your points, but maybe you have an opening question or two or three based on what you know the tone and tenor is of the group. And then after that, let's just go into hand raising and rock and roll.
I don't, Gary. You're putting me on the spot. I never prep questions for you.
Good news. I'm thrilled to go directly to Q&A. I didn't know if there was anything you sense or is in the air or that you've heard from this crew or anything on your mind.
Yeah, we just had our first Fireside chat last week with T, and we're pairing folks up now, which is a whole kind of new energy. So really, I'd really love to turn over to the group to maximize time, quite frankly. So
great. So use the hand raise. We'll tell you who goes and we will rock and roll.
All right, Austin, first up.
Thank you. Hey, Gary. So simply put, you're seeing a lot of platforms kind of try to do cross functionality. Like you're seeing TikTok implement a Be Real sort of functionality and the photo functionality. And you're seeing Instagram now compete with Be Real and do more video centric stuff. Do you think it's going to end up being everyone doing everything? Or do you think it's going to resettle to everyone kind of just sitting in their comfort zone and what they are best at?
Well, Meta's been doing this long before, with Facebook and Instagram, and now you have TikTok doing it because they're such a big player. I think everybody will try everything if there's a standalone app that they think is a feature, but some will stick and some won't. For example, let's go back to way back when this really started. Snapchat stories, right? Snapchat comes out, stories works. Then you have Instagram. That was like that big moment. A lot of you probably remember this. Instagram adds it. It stuck. But so did Twitter and Facebook and other things. And some platforms, it didn't stick. What about Clubhouse? When Clubhouse got hot, I made a video that said, everyone's going to try to make this a feature. Everybody did. Facebook included, Instagram, all of them. It was Twitter Spaces that stuck, right? So I think with Be Real or anything we see for the next half decade, all the leaders will try to implement it. And some will have it stick because it worked for them and they did a good job, and some won't. And that will be the constant flow that we see.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course, brother.
Hey, Gary. So I just started on my first new business pitch, which is really exciting. And I was wondering what your biggest piece of advice was for entering this kind of new fast-paced assignment, mindset or like tactical things, whatever.
The concept of if I'm playing a new business, what should I be thinking about? Is that where you're going? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I think the thing to look out for is what are clients reacting well to? That's always a good thing to learn. Like why did that client think that was cool? Or why did they ask us to double click into that? I think that this, a lot of what we're trying to do in general, and definitely in new business, is osmosis. I think the other thing to think about is what to parrot, from the Kalins and others. So I think it's a huge learning experience. But by far the most interesting thing I'd be looking for is what are people reacting best to and why?
Cool. Thank you. Of
course.
Hey, Gary, how are you? It's nice to finally meet you. I hope you're having a great day. My question is, what advice would you give to someone who's eager to try out many different roles, and how should one go about finding their place at Vayner?
I think Vayner is a very unique organization where we're willing to let people transfer from media to account to strategy to project management. So, figuring out what you're about is raising your hand and asking to try something new. And you're at the right company for that. And whether that works out here or somewhere else, it's a constant game of raising your hand and patiently and humbly asking to try something else, because you don't really know what you love or you're great at until you try it. Like, there's a lot of people who love riding bikes who are actually meant to be better skateboarders, but they never tried skateboarding, which is just too bad. And so, I think staying curious, asking questions of the people that are in those departments. Vayner's best strength is that we have a culture where people will feel weird if they don't reply to questions or are not nice to each other. So take advantage of that while you're here. Use Slack, right? Use it and ask people, hey, I'm in media, but I'm curious about project management. Why do you like it? What do you have to be good at? So staying curious and staying on the offense and knowing that you're in a company that rewards it.
Yeah, thank you. Because sometimes I feel like I want to do too many different things, and I feel like it's too much going on. So thank you for
Ariel, the thing, stay with me here for a second. The thing is, it's good to try to do a lot of things or be curious, but curiosity is a strength. Curiosity is a strength. The only thing you have to do is be empathetic to the organizations you work in. So if you're at Vayner, what are you a resident for right now?
I'm a creator resident, but I've been shadowing PMs and trying to look maybe at PCS and community management, just all around.
As long as you're fair in return to Vayner, if they want you to be a creator for a year before you even try those other things, I think where curious youngsters get caught is audacity. There's that level of entitlement, and it's not a Gen Z thing. I hate when everyone's like Gen Z. I saw this in fucking Generation X when I was 22. People are entitled consistently, and so, as long as you're empathetic that Vayner would like to give you that at bat in project management, but it's not ready just yet. And whether that's Vayner or you decide to go somewhere else, for all of you, as long as you're empathetic to the organization, if they're really trying, well then, and you're willing to be patient, then you're in a good spot. I will say that where younger generations got caught is the world's faster now because of technology. And so patience is definitely something people struggle with. And because of the way the world is, insecurity has always been poison, but now people literally are living their lives so publicly that if they're insecure and they want success so that they can flex, it eliminates patience. You'd be stunned if you saw some of the emails I get from employees who left here for a $5,000 raise when we weren't willing to do it because they just wanted to buy some dumb shit. And now we're like, what the fuck did I do? And so you guys and gals are so young. It's about being thoughtful, but do not downplay. You're not chaotic. You're not too, crazy about that. That's good. You're trying to figure out your shit. I think it's a strength, but you just have to be, unless you're an entrepreneur and you control your way, you have to know that there's, we're the most pro-employee org on earth. And even for us, it's hard for you to be like, hey, I want to be PCS because that spot might not exist at this exact second.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. The first time we met, you mentioned that we are the future of the company. And I'm in this residency program, I've been having that as a mindset. Going into the next 5 years, what is the best mindset and the learning path that I can take to become the future of this company? And I'm not saying become where you are. I'm just saying like to grow in this company and to be a big part of it.
It's a great question. I think a couple of things. One is self-awareness. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. There are plenty of times, and I'm as happy as it gets professionally, and there are still plenty of times that I say, I wonder how cool it would have been to have the DNA that would have made me like, I'm envious of a lot of my senior employees. I'm like, like yesterday, like being sick, it was not only bad to have 103 fever, it was even worse knowing that I was missing things that were really important. And like, I can't like rely on anybody else to do that role. So I think first of all, self-awareness. When you have ambition, even you asking that question, my fear is that you push yourself into places on an ideology versus the reality of who you actually are. So I think the best way people can be the future of this company is, one, they have a good sense of themselves. Two, they have a good sense of what they want in life, financially, creatively, work-life balance. Three, this is a big one. I want everybody to pay attention to this one. Three, that they have the capacity to change their mind 5 years from now. So some of you right now might be like, I actually do want Gary's job. I want to be the global CEO of VaynerX in 20 years. And I think that's fucking rad. On the flip side, you may fall deeply, deeply in love in 7 years and then start a family and be like, fuck that. I want to be like my mom or dad, or I want to be the reverse of my mom and dad. And I want to be at every recital and every ball game. And that's not going to let you be the global CEO of VaynerX. That's just real talk. So I think that if you have a good sense of who you are, if you're comfortable in who you are, and if you're willing to change your mind of what you want, that's a huge starting point. The next things are, one, let there be no confusion. Unless you are a very nice person and nice to others, you can only grow so much here. There's nobody that gets to the upper levels. So if you're in a place where you're still insecure, like if you have big ambitions here and you're testy because you yourself are slightly unhappy, I started thinking about things like meditation. I started thinking about things like therapy, because there's been so many people that had the talents to get to the highest levels here, but lost along the way because they didn't have the human capacity to be the person I need them to be with each other. They're political. They worry about their money. They try to tear down other people who they think are trying to take their spot. So all that stuff. And then finally, and I'm going to pound the living shit out of this, without the S in SOC, you can only get so far. Strategic organic content, and something you'll be hearing a lot about soon called PAC, Platforms and Culture. The future of communication over the next 10 years, which is going to impact all of you, is whoever is the most significantly talented in understanding how the platforms work and understand the cultural nuances of hundreds of different consumer segmentations. Not culture as in the cool slang term for urban hip hop culture. I mean, do you know what 40 to 47-year-old middle America hunter and fisherman type dudes care about, and how to get them to buy chocolate milk? Right? So it's all cultures, it's all ages, genders, races, interests, financial levels. And one thing I worry about in this company, I talked to the team, as most of you saw the video with Brittany King, and we just have a very strong passion around DE&I and different things of that nature. One of the things I see from so many of my well-intended senior executives is they think the strategists and creatives that will be best for the consumer cohorts are the people that look like the consumer cohorts, and that's not true. Right? Like, I don't think like, a 40-year-old woman is the only person that knows how to sell 40-year-old women stuff. I don't think you have to be Hispanic to understand how to sell stuff to Hispanics. And so I see a lot of well-intended subconscious thinking that I'm excited to change over time, because I fit only one demo, with my age and gender, but my whole career is built on my empathy and compassion and intuition around all people. And so it's also why I think a lot of you are probably aware that in your circles of friends, family, acquaintances, my brand hits for a lot of people, all that looks super different. And it's because, the messaging is contextual, even though it's still grounded in the same truth of love over hate.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, that's why I hopped on Dash and Divas to throw a couple of TikToks in there for them, because it's something that I found funny. But I appreciate that, Gary. Thank you.
Keep it going.
Appreciate you, Sarah. Appreciate you, Gary. How you doing, G?
I'm good, my man.
Oh man, so good to see you. I don't know if you remember NF tampons. That's me. But Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for having us. My question to you is, I'm on consulting. I'm a creator. I'm in consulting. So I've been introduced to PAC in some capacity. And my question is, how do we push clients more towards just diving themselves deeper into culture and not being so, not to say like, let's not focus on what's trending, but like be more ahead of that curve of where culture is going as a brand?
I think for us, all of you don't have this context, but the strides we've made in the last 36 months are so profound. For us, there's going to be no option if you work with us. So it's going to be easy. It's going to be a byproduct of how we sell, how we talk, because of what you are doing. And look, you've had a real front row seat. Like, consulting was a really good spot this time around. It's how life works. So you're getting to see a lot of the stuff, and you can see what's happening. With Jimmy John's this or St. Jude that. Like, we're right about this. You're either relevant or you're not. And so I think for us, to answer your question, we're going to get them to do it because they're going to have no damn choice. It's what they're paying us to do. So I think we're going to continue to go more and more there.
Makes sense. Yeah. Appreciate you.
I'm really glad you're here.
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Well, my man.
All right. So what I want to touch upon is, obviously everyone talks about the culture. And now that we've been here for a while, I've experienced that firsthand. And it's kind of hard to describe like how effective it is. And I understand why that makes us different than other agencies. But my question about culture is, how did you get to this point with your mindset regarding culture? Like, where does that come from? Is that something that you were raised with? Is there a moment that made you realize that?
It was something I was born with. And I know that because it was funny. I had my friends that I grew up with when I was from first grade to seventh grade in Edison, New Jersey on a podcast the other day. And we didn't get to some of these things on the podcast, but it got my brain remembering. They were talking about, this is really funny actually. They were talking about the fact that I used to get into fights a lot. So I was like a real like scrapper New Jersey kid. Like I'm talking like fights.
Yeah.
And it reminded me that a lot of my fights came from me defending when people picked on people. So I was on like some superhero shit from the get kind of thing, meaning I've always been uncomfortable with people being mean to people. It's what really fucks me up with society right now, because both sides of the political party are fully into that place now. And so the answer to your question is, this is some real shit. I am so uncomfortable when there is tension. I can't even live within it. It's a visceral reaction to me. even if like, you know this, Dustin, even when me and Dustin are traveling, right? If I don't like the way his face looks, I'm like, are you good? Like, it's my natural state. Everything cool? Like, I don't like it. And because I have so much intuitive, like spiritual energy that comes natural to me, I always know. I mean, there's some shit, like some of the stories of employees, you know how some of the 8 and 9 and 10-year employees come and tell you shit like he knows or this. It's because it's some spooky shit, Isaiah. It's like, I'll be going to the bathroom and I'm like, I don't like the way that felt. And then I'm like, admins, can you get me 15 with that like, so there was no choice. Then, so cool, I gave you that frame up. Now it gets even weirder. Then I go into working for my dad at 14. So this is my natural state. This is my essence. And then I go into work in my dad's liquor store, and it's a toxic disaster. My dad, who I struggled with for the first 7 or 8 years on this, and maybe even 10 years on this, and maybe even 20 years on this, until I realized that my dad grew up in the Soviet Union where every employee stole everything, and it was so toxic that it formed him. My dad's point of view was that employees were your enemy. My dad's greatest fear, 24/7, 365 in my teenage years, was the employees are stealing.
Right. And I just want to say that, like, congratulate you on the fact that you've established a culture here that genuinely feels like a family only 2 months in with my team, and idea generation and teamwork and everything that goes into the ad business. It's never felt so like pure and genuine, and it comes so easy. So I think you've done a great job at, responding to that.
I appreciate that. And I'll say this for the people on here. And if you don't have it, if that's a 10 and you're sitting right now and you're not in the chat and you're thinking that's not what I have, then that's something I realize is real. We have 1,800 employees. And I'm a human being. I understand how shit works. I'll give you an example. There was something that happened years ago that really stuck with me. Somebody who was an 11 on culture, an 11, out of nowhere, like little smoke started popping up. XYZ made me upset today. XYZ, da-da-da. And when I got to the bottom of it, her father was dying from brain cancer. And she brought that to work. And like, of course, when you're scared, you know this, all of you know this about yourself. When you're most scared, it's only one of two things that are going to happen. And so I don't sit here in an ivory tower delusional that everybody's hitting at an 11 of a 10. But I do sit here in my ivory tower knowing that I spend an ungodly amount of energy, time, and effort, and tons of money compared to companies that look like this on trying to get every situation to 11 of 10. And that's why we win. Because there's never an interest for us to look the other way, because we don't value the money, we value the culture. We need the money to pay the bills. Honey empire, right? I got to be practical. This is not delusional school, but I'm feeling really confident. And I will tell you, every month that goes by, we've got it better and better and better. And that's really, especially the last 3 years. And that's really exciting to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to build on that, Gary, I think that was a nice reminder for me in the all hands the other day, when I think one of the questions was, how are we going to win? And I thought you were going to go right to SOC. You're like, people first. Like, oh shit, that's right. That's what we started with. So it's a good reminder for me too, personally, as well.
Yeah, to your point, the reason it's people is if you have continuity, you win. I talk in like sign language and like ESP with like Marcus and Hannah and you and Kaylin, and like we go fast. Speed matters. Like when you trust your fellow employee, you're actually working on the work instead of the politics. So many of you have friends right now that you guys over a beer or when you hang out, like they're just talking, all the energy's on the toxic fucking politics. Right? All of it. So yeah, I mean, I know why we're going to win, and it's because of how I think about this. For sure.
Nice.
Hi, thank you, Sarah, and hi, Gary. Oh, just a little tip, Gary. In case you are feeling not so great still, ginger, turmeric, and some oregano, it'll clear you up for sure.
My my grandma Esther, who's no longer with us, and my girlfriend Mona both agree with you very, very feverishly.
Yes, very much. We come from a long line of herbal women. But basically, my question is actually kind of building on what we were just speaking on. We know that we're moving into the recession and like unprecedented times. So just as a creator, I wanted to know like what I could provide, do, or communicate to my audience members, but still, that is valuable to them during all these craziness and times, because I have a very, very strong moral compass, but still being beneficial to the client as well. So like, I hate selling out, I come from the hood, Harlem. So I'm just like, I don't want to sell out, but I also, like you said, we have bills to pay. So what's a way to be valuable to them?
It's a great question. First of all, one of the things, to be honest, even though yesterday was a tough, like, I can't believe I got sick for the first time ever day, it gave me a few minutes to kind of like, especially once my fever broke, to look at the election. And it was interesting what went through my mind. I'm like, man, it wasn't even like a political stance. It was my brain was in operations of Vayner mode. I was like, wow, this very big day for the Democrats is just going to make my day-to-day a lot easier, because people's tensions are not going to be as high, because, not to talk too much politics, but obviously we have a young company and that lends itself to a certain direction. The biggest thing is, 4 years ago, I told a lot of our employees, we expect our clients to be our activists for us.
Right.
Right. And so similarly to that, with your question, you can share your truth on what will be relevant, but you have to be empathetic that these people have jobs.
Right.
And they may have to make it 20 to 30% more vanilla than you would want it to be. I actually think it's one of the biggest reasons we win. Because I have no boss, am able to go 100.
Absolutely.
And so most of our clients on a good day can only go 70, and we have to be empathetic to that.
Understood, for sure. Thank you, Gary.
Of course.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Gary. Hey, Sarah. You guys, Sarah is a superhero. Like, flowers to you, Sarah. But my question, Gary, you've been talking a lot about like how the last 36 months have been like really crucial. I just wanted to ask you, what is probably like the most memorable or like the most important life experience you've had like in the last like recent years that have made you like really develop and grow as a person, with just like business wise, personally wise, in relation to anything?
Candor has forever been a weakness of mine, and has always been the weakness of this organization. I just don't like confrontation. Your gift is your curse. The reason we have this great culture is because I hate negativity and confrontation. The reason it took us a little while to get it really good is I love it so much that I mistreated it, and where candor really mattered, I was unable to deliver it. Thus, that trickled down to the organization. And so the biggest vulnerability this company had for years was the most senior people over time realized that they didn't actually know where they sat with me. And so what that did was, it was a very devastating day. No question, the most difficult day of my career happened about 4 years ago, when I realized, so my number one thing is that my job is to eliminate fear as a leader. When I had to realize, looking myself in the mirror, that me not being candorous led to a lot of people not knowing where they stood, which actually created fear, was heartbreaking. And, I feel like now we're much better for it. And so I would say that is the answer.
Thank you, Sarah. Hey, Gary.
How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Very good.
I guess my question is kind of related to the future of the internet. Like you might have seen, like people are saying we're in a crypto winter right now. And
yes.
I wanted to know, what's your perspective on why you think there's a divide between people who are pro metaverse and why like big tech companies like Snap and Apple and stuff are still like naysayers or who don't believe fully, who don't give into the concept of the metaverse, and what's really causing this divide according to you? And
financial interest.
Okay.
Microsoft wasn't into the internet. Financial interest and timing. The metaverse, if we're talking metaverse, because this, the metaverse can mean a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using the metaverse as slang for Web3, that's one thing, aka blockchains that have consumer applications like NFTs. If you're using the metaverse like VR, I believe that VR will happen one day, but I also think Facebook could overinvest in it because it might be too early. I don't like investing in things all the way until it's a little more obvious that it's real. Nobody here knows anybody who spends 2 hours a day on VR. So I think that, but I think to answer your question, it's all financial interest. And by the way, this is one day you'll realize what's cool about being 45 or 46 or 47, like I'm going to be in 4 days, is it's pattern recognition. Varun, let me give you an example. You know how people say, like, why does that need to be an NFT? Can't you do it this way? Let me give you one that's going to blow all your minds. When I launched WineLibrary.com in 1997, which in itself is wild because there are many people here who were born after 1997. So when I launched WineLibrary.com in 1997, do you know what people said to me? They said, Gary, why do you need a website? You could just do a catalog. Think about that. Like, for real, like real business people, real grown-ups. Like, why would you build a website? You could just do a catalog. Why do I think tickets are going to be NFTs? Because they're better than QR codes. And why did all our tickets become QR codes? What was wrong with paper? So this is just pattern recognition for me.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Gary, how's it going? Thank you for taking the time to meet us. My name's I'm on the media side of P&G Grooming. So my question for you is, what would you say to be the turning point in your life that kind of shifted to who you are today? And what could we take from that? Like if there's any advice that you can give to us from something that's happened to you in your life that made you to who you are today?
I don't think there's something super clear, brother. I think what the real answer to this question is something happened to me between 9 and 14 that isn't very clear to me still, that flipped me to a level of self-awareness and confidence that guided me my whole life. Like one thing that is very bonkers to me is how completely non-penetratable I was to peer pressure in high school. I still don't fully even understand it, to be honest. Like when I recall the things I didn't do in the face of why it would seemingly be so easy and so obvious that you should do that if you're a kid, good parenting, good DNA, circumstances. I do think there are some big advantages of growing up in the dirt, but what I would tell you to give you an answer that maybe brings value is how quickly can you fall fully in love with yourself? Like that you're so in love with yourself that you don't need validation from anybody else. While you balance that love of yourself with extraordinary levels of humility to offset the vulnerability of loving yourself.
Awesome. Thank you.
Got it.
Gary, how you doing?
I'm well, brother. How are you?
Good. I'm going to throw you probably the most important question, a little off speed here. Jets, great season so far.
Yes.
At what point do you think this becomes for you a disappointment season where like you had these expectations now, what point do you think like it's like, damn, like that sucked?
Not going to happen. I'm too locked in. And it has happened in the past many times. This season is such a blessing because it's a year ahead of schedule. A lot of things have gone wrong from an injury front, but it's, I'm too educated in knowing what's happened here, which is we've hit too much pay dirt in the draft and we've managed our salary cap too well. Of course, you can always have injuries. Look at Buffalo. It looks like they dodged a bullet, but earlier this week, there was scenarios where Josh Allen might be out for the year and they did everything right 5 years before we did to get to this point. The Jets could literally win every game the rest of the year, brother, which they won't, but they could, and could lose in the first round of the playoffs. And I'd still be ecstatic because the foundation of what they have is too strong. So not this year. I think years like that, where you get disappointed when the team overperforms, is when you can't go back the following year. You have 6 free agents that are your best players. The Jets' 7 best players are in their first 2 years of their life. It's crazy what the Jets have right now. This is it. Finally got there,
Yeah, no, great season. Thank you.
Hey, how we doing, everybody? Just wanted to ask, this is a follow-up from a question that was like a little bit earlier, but you talked about building self-awareness and like doing that as a practice over time. But at this stage of life, sort of in this kind of position where we all are, how would you recommend building that kind of awareness, like right now, in steps that we could take?
There's only 2. This has always been a question I've always been scared of. And over the last 7 or 8 years, it's gotten a hair easier. There's 2 ways I think about self-awareness. One is incredibly personal, and the other one requires others. One, I actually think that almost everyone actually knows the truth about themselves, but have built up so much posturing that it becomes their subconscious and they can't even tell the difference. So I talk a lot about with my friends and family and people I care about and groups like this, just really go there in a dark room by yourself, and just really go there and be like, no. Gary's right. I'm just going to do this because I think this is going to make me happier. And just actually put pen to paper on the shit that you're full of shit about. And I really even just watching you all move right now on screen, all of you can probably come up with one thing that you say and act on that is not true. So that's big, John, right? That's big. The second one is kind of cool, which is how do you get 3 to 4 people that know you the best? Right? And you spend some time with them prepping them. You have a dinner, you hang out once, and you basically build them towards this day, a couple weeks out, where you ask them to really call it like it is from their perspective. What are you good at? What are you bad at? What do you do that fucks them up, but they've never been able to tell you because you love them, they love you? And you kind of make these 3 to 10 people feel really safe to really tell you. And that it's true. The thing that worked for me is I don't lie to myself. I don't want to trick myself. You know what I mean, John? People posture, bro. And this goes back to loving yourself over others. I think the biggest reason people posture is because they value other people's opinions too much.
No facts.
You know what I mean, my man? I'm just not really worried about if someone thinks I'm cool or good looking or smart or clever. I'm just not there. Of course I'd like to be liked, but it's and I'm normally very liked by anybody that knows me. I know that you guys and gals have people in your life that don't like me. That's because they watched one video once out of context and take a hot take. They don't really know me like that. And so, it's just really being honest with yourself and putting the people that are closest to you into a framework of being honest with you And then you start working on it. Let me give you an insight at this young of an age that might really hit for some of you. Let me tell you why there's no value in posturing or faking the funk. It's because you can trick the 98%, and the 2% is who you actually want. And the 2% are the ones that are turned off by your bullshit. You're just tricking people that are trickable. That.
Yeah, that's pretty much facts.
Gary, my grandfather, he taught me you can't shit a shitter. That was his line. So it's
you know what?
Totally that.
You know what? Couldn't have said it better to you. Like, because nobody has ever tricked me ever in my entire life. Nobody has tricked me ever. I know that there are other, well, what am I, one of one? Definitely not. And so I say to myself, then why would I do that and lose equity with the people that are most talented just to trick the ones that are trickable? Because when you're tricking trickable people, somebody else might trick them onto you.
Mm. That's what I was about to ask, like in terms of like, I think you got to it earlier, but like the losses and games that come from that, from tricking trickable people, but also not tricking, like not bullshitting like a bullshitter.
It's just the same thing, right? Like for you guys, you're so close to this, given your age. Like think about all the people you tried to be friends with in high school because they were cool or good looking. And then like now just 7 years, 5 years, 6 years removed from it, you're like, what the fuck? You have no interest in those people. It's just that keeps going on past high school.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also thank you, Gary, for all those very inspiring words. Definitely appreciate that. Makes me feel better. But my question is definitely a hot topic in like media right now, which is Twitter. And so I was part of like the Twitter Spaces talk yesterday. Yep. And so I felt like got to hear a lot about like Elon's like rationale where basically he's implementing this $8, per verification a month, like to basically weed out all the bots and like deception. But I'm curious, do you think this is going to like be a good thing for Twitter, or do you think it's going to be like the end of it?
I don't think it'll be the end of it until, I mean, look how big Facebook is, and Instagram came along and Snap came along and TikTok came along. So I think people think in absolutes. The only thing that will end Twitter, quote unquote, AKA Twitter becomes MySpace, is if the leaders are not capable. My intuition is that Elon is more capable than the way they've been running it. And the only other thing that could hurt it is market share loss, and that would require somebody to build a better Twitter, right? And so I don't know if this is going to work because I'm not in the business of predicting. I'm in the business of watching. I'll have a really big point of view on it in 60 days, in 150 days. I know that I can tell you that the problem with people's POVs on Twitter is Elon bleeds a little bit too much into politics for people. And so they have their hot takes on their political points of view, not on the rationale of what's happening. So, for me, the global town square is why I invested in Twitter. Right there, it's my Twitter stock certificate. I invested in Twitter in 2006 because I was like, the world's going to want this.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs its place to talk about the latest episode of Love Island. The world needs its place to talk about what happened on Thursday Night Football. The world needs its place to talk about, their favorite couple breaking up. It's a human need. Obviously, the political divide in our country has been overwhelming and has led to the anxiety. And people are really good at talking about all the bad things that social media has done without realizing all that social media is empty vessels that expose us. And so, I don't believe one person on earth became a racist because of Facebook. I think Facebook exposed that they were a racist. And so, I don't know. I think social media has exposed me to be a better person than people thought, because I am a better person. So I think this is a game of exposing, not a game of changing. And so until we realize we have a lot of work to do on the parenting front and on the education front, and humans are audacious. We need way more humility. Way more humility. I love watching all of you come into Vayner and thinking you actually know something about social media because you've been using it for your teenage years. That has nothing, using social media to hook up or watch some shit that you like has nothing to do with using it to sell shit.
Definitely. I felt that since joining this company. But yeah, thank you, Gary.
You got it, brother.
All right, got a couple minutes left. Try to squeeze them in.
Hi, Gary. Thank you for coming to speak with us today, and I appreciate the time. My name is Caitlin. I'm on Express as a media resident, and my question kind of ties in with what you're just talking about, and then back with like toxic work cultures that have like appear in a lot of big companies, but not here, thankfully, or like at least it like tries to avoid that. And so, because as y'all were just talking about social media, I personally am just coming out of college, like we use social media in a very different way, and coming into the workforce, you kind of have to realize, and we always should have been monitoring our own media, because it's great that it has like been super transparent, but sometimes I've been like scared by what my parents say, like what you put on social media, even college or whatever, will then like somebody will be like, "Ooh, take it against you," and like if like other work cultures could be so toxic that they'll somehow find a way that they lose your job or just take something in a bad way. And I just kind of wonder how to go about that, because I want to friend my coworkers.
You want me to give you a real insight on this?
Yes, please.
Caitlin, any company that is going to fire you because there's a beer pong photo of you, or because you and your friends wore bikinis on spring break, is not a fucking company you want to work at.
True.
So there's that. You tell mom and dad you don't want to work in those shitholes anyway. And comma, I've got something even better for all of you. Now that you have VaynerMedia on your resume, that completely trumps where the fuck you went to college and whatever the fuck you did on social.
Awesome. Well, I thank you. I love that mindset, and I hope to find more companies take this mindset with them in the future.
They will, because as we continue to crush all of them and get bigger, they're going to have to copy us.
Exactly. Thank you, Gary.
All right, crew. Love you. This was fun.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary.
Gary.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gary.
Love you guys.
We love you.